There is more bark in this picture than a trip to the dog pound. You want ribs like this? Stick with me. Most beginners miss this step, but I'm going to show you how to make tender, smoky, brag-worthy beef back ribs every single time. Let's make it happen. I've got my cattle drive rub here, shaker bottle compliments of my daughter, and a Sharpie. But hey, it works for me. The only problem is I don't have any meat to put it on. Let's solve that problem. It's a beautiful day and I'm hitting my neighborhood Costco. Let's see what they have. All in all, these ribs do look pretty good. But the first rookie mistake you want to avoid? Buying the wrong rack. Beef back ribs are what's left after a rib roast gets cut down. But you see these bones, how they kind of poke through? Those are called shiners. And you don't want racks of ribs with shiners. But I found a couple racks that will do just fine. Now you might think I'm going to take the membrane off. No, I'm not treating these like pork ribs. And I've made that mistake before. Really, beef back ribs, you look at that thick membrane, it's like a rib seat belt. If you pull it off, that rack can fall apart. And unlike pork ribs, you don't need to fight it. Cook them hot enough and that membrane will soften up and come right off. No need to mess with it. Now I'm getting ready to apply a light coat of olive oil as my binder. Really, binders don't change flavor. They're just like glue for your rub. Oil, mustard, Worcestershire, once those ribs hit the smoke, it all tastes the same. The rub and the fire do the heavy lifting. It's also important to note how I'm rubbing these ribs. About 12 inches over the top so that the rub does not clump and you get even coverage. You want even the back side thoroughly coated with rub. As you can see, that binder helps the rub to stick. It's not falling off. Even when I flip this rack of ribs over, the rub stays on. Putting a light coat of olive oil on the top, applying the rub liberally, again about 12 inches over the top of the rack of ribs, getting even coverage, great taste, great bark, and this rub is off the chain. As you can see, my cattle drive rub is already sweating into the meat nicely. It has salt, pepper, very small amount of sugar, but heavy on the savory notes, including espresso powder, which complements beef beautifully. Don't worry though, I'll put the entire recipe in the description as these ribs rest overnight. Ladies and gentlemen, you've reached the most important part in the barbecue process. Fire management. Nothing else comes close. All the rubs, sauces are a complete waste of time if you don't get this part right. What I like to do is build a small, intense fire that burns cleanly. You see, you want to regulate your temperature with the size of the fire, which ultimately makes the vents an afterthought. In most cases, I keep my exhaust stack wide open to promote good, clean smoke that's often translucent and has a slight bluish tint. If you get this part right, you're on the road to dynamite barbecue. I'm going to keep my vents open to start, but I'll just fine-tune as the time goes on. But since I have a small, intense fire, I don't have to do much. And if this fire starts to die a bit, I'll just stoke it as you see, using one of the splits that I pulled from the top of the firebox there that's been warming up. And now I've got that fire right where I want it. And look at the smoke I have, that translucent, almost bluish smoke. Guys, that's good barbecue smoke right there. If you want even more rich smoke flavor on your barbecue, well, if you're burning a clean fire, you can actually put your ribs on even a little bit early, and they'll be able to get that much more smoke, even when your temperatures aren't quite up to cooking temperature. You'll be cold smoking in a sense, but it'll be a great smoky flavor because you've mastered fire management. And as I previously mentioned, it's always a good idea to put your upcoming splits of wood on top of that hot firebox. And that way, when you actually put it in the fire, they'll catch right off. This is one of the devices I use. It's called a Govee temperature probe. And so I snake it inside of the pit, and I can find out what my temperatures are at all times. Again, I'm going to close this up, get these ribs to cooking so they have beautiful color, beautiful taste. With fire management now I get to enjoy laughing at my two daughters, both of whom were afraid to get their bikes because of spiders. Or my eccentric oldest daughter enjoying that rich post-oak smell. Wait, I think she might be onto something here. Fire management is a breeze. When you start with that small, intense fire, you don't have to play with your vents constantly. My particular offset cooker likes to run between 250 and 275, so I don't fight it. I let it coast along and enjoy my family. Now, every cooker is different. I have a hot spot right here closest to the firebox, and I know it gets cooler throughout the cooking chamber the further you get away from the firebox. So that will help me control the heat. Now, the temperatures are right on, nothing to worry about, but I'll move the meat around periodically so it gets balanced heat. Yeah, this spot's hot too. Again, I can't stress enough about having a small, hot fire that makes life so much easier at the pit. I think inside of an hour, I only made one small adjustment to my intake vent, and this is an old rusty smoker that leaks heat. Trust me, this will give you some time back to go help your daughters fight off those awful spiders. And as a gift to me, I stole one of their Hello Kitty spray bottles to use as my spritz bottle, and it works. But ask yourself, do you spritz your ribs too much? That's also a rookie move. Really, spritzing isn't a routine, it's a response. Only spritz if the bark looks dry. If it's still moist, just leave it alone. Now, as you can see here, I'm just stoking my fire a little bit, keeping it hot, keeping it all together, and I'm putting a split in that's already been on top of the firebox, and look how quickly it lights up. Perfect for barbecuing. Again, when you see this cool blue smoke coming out of your exhaust stack, know that you have fire management down and great barbecue coming. So here I'm checking the color of the meat. It's coming along nicely. You can see some of the fat is rendering and pooling on the surface because of that heat. But remember, I mentioned the hot spot I have. So now I'm rotating the meat around just so I get even coverage of heat. And it's going to cook and finish right around the same time. Here again with my Hello Kitty spray bottle, taking care of business. Just looking at the dry spots, trying to keep them moist. Again, small hot fire, that's the key. If you take anything away from the video, it's that. Now look at the barbecue. It's coming along nicely. It's a little bit darker, more mahogany. So I've got my thermopen here. I'm checking not temperatures as much as how much the probe slides in between the bones. That's what I want to see. It's nowhere near done, but I'm getting practice. I'm trying to feel how much resistance do I feel? How much more time will this need? Here's about an hour further, as you can see, well along into the cook. And in fact, the temperatures are quite high. But again, the most important thing is how does it feel when you stick the probe in between the bones? Now, if you go by temperature, you're looking at it, okay, 160, 170, okay, 180. So it's not bad. But this rack up here is a little bit slower, so I might have a cool spot on the pit to take notice of. Now check this out. Here's something that'll tell you if your meat is about done. Here's a pro tip for you. Look in between the bones. Can you grab a bone and perhaps twist it or pull it, and it almost wants to break apart from the rack of ribs? That's a huge indication that your meat is about done. And of course, use nitrile gloves with cotton liners underneath, or you're going to cremate your hands. Next, I'll use my thermopen here, not necessarily checking temperatures, but again, checking feel. Does it feel like it's sliding right in between the bones, like a knife through butter or peanut butter? I like peanut butter. Same difference. So that's what I'm checking to see how close they are to being done. And guess what? Perfect. My dog's ready to eat. Everybody's ready to eat. So now I'm at the spot where I'm going to glaze these ribs. And notice how I do that. I'm going to blot them. I don't like rubbing or brushing my sauce on because I'm very paranoid about losing bark, even though the bark is set. Now I could easily eat these ribs without sauce, but my family loves sauce, so I warmed up some to apply to the barbecue. And notice here I'm even glazing the bones. I want it to be a beautiful presentation for us when we eat. That top rack, I'll just let it cook because it's got some more time to render that fat out. The ribs are looking good though. No complaints here. So here's a trick I like to use. I don't like gloopy sauce on top of my ribs. So what I'll do, I'll come back over with my spritz bottle here, and I have just a little bit of apple juice, and I'm actually spraying the sauce to kind of thin it out. I like a thin layer of sauce if I'm using sauce at all. And so remember, you can do that part way through the glazing process. It'll thin the sauce out and make it so that it looks like just a beautiful lacquer. You don't want like a coat of frosting on your ribs. You just want a little bit. And there you have it. Look at that bark, the rendered fat that melted in with that thin layer of beef glaze. In my opinion, these taste every bit as good as Big Brother brisket. But you can take these humble beef back ribs and turn them into something your friends and family will want every weekend. Avoid the rookie mistakes by focusing on fire management, and you'll get juicy, smoky, flavorful ribs And you won't have to babysit your smoker, allowing you to watch every touchdown from your favorite team or fight insects with your kids. Now here's an equally important step. These ribs look fantastic. Look at the fat dripping off of them. But guess what, friends? We're not quite ready to eat. These things got to rest. So I'm going to put these in my hotel pan, cover them with foil, turn my oven on warm, and I'm going to let them rest and wait for dinner. T-minus 60 minutes until rib day. That rest allowed these ribs to look beautiful and the fat to redistribute. Look at that smoke ring and look at the bark just glistening with flavor. This is what happens when you run a clean fire and let the ribs rest for a good amount of time. You get these juicy morsels of beef. But now it's time to eat. The meat comes right off the bone. The flavor is just next level. You have got to try these. Please try these next weekend. You'll love them. Thanks for hanging with me for this whole video. I'm telling you, you can have these ribs this weekend. Just follow the steps that we went over. And if you want more step-by-step help building confidence at the pit, grab my free barbecue guide that's linked in my bio, and consider joining the Smokers Guild, which is also linked inside the guide. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next cook. Let's make it happen.